Is God's grace a subject we pick up from our spiritual toolbox in order to win people and get them saved, while we mainly should focus on other subjects for those who are already believers in order to make them mature in their faith? The answer is no. The gospel is the power of God unto salvation in every area of our lives. Grace is the core of the gospel, which is why Paul called it the gospel of God's grace. Grace is essential for every aspect of the Christian life, not only the initial salvation. Everything is by grace. Did you know that the same grace that saves us also teaches us to say no to sin, to live a holy lifestyle, and motivates us to passionately serve God? Paul said in his letter to Titus, "For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in the present age, looking for the blessed hope and glorious appearing of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from every lawless deed and purify for himself his own special people, zealous for good works." We see clearly in this passage that the same grace that saves us also works sanctification in our lives. What does it mean that we are saved by grace? That salvation is a gift, not dependent on our performance, but simply dependent on what Jesus has done for us, and we responding by believing this. That we are saved by grace means that we are saved in spite of that we have not deserved or earned it. How are we sanctified so that we can live a godly life? The answer is the same. By letting God's grace, his unmerited favor, work in our lives. How do we mature in our Christian life? By focusing on God's grace, by feeding on teaching about God's grace, and constantly living in the awareness of God's unconditional love for us through Jesus Christ. God's grace not only saves us, it teaches us to live holy and equips us with zeal to serve God with all of our hearts and to do good works for him.